Oh, yes, what are we fighting for? Here you listen to Country Joe, Fixin' to Die Rag. Well, this Lindsey Zuskin is our final guest to close out part one of our salute to 50 years of peace and love starting at Woodstock. Lindsey is a talented young artist based in Baltimore who joined us on the Light Brigade, the team who helped me recreate an exact replica of the so-called Woodstock bus. We were very fortunate that Lindsey responded to our help wanted, and because she was ideally suited for our team. Lindsey grew up in a VW family, and this meant she was already familiar with the mechanics of these unique vintage vehicles. She was also the first one to jump in to shift the gears and lift the brake and steer the wheel when we needed to move the bus around in the barn studio. She added her woodworking skills to the construction and of the customized scaffolding we built so they could paint the roof on the bus. And she was the first one to climb up to the roof, where she and fellow artist Jess Rasp spent the first several weeks uncomfortably leaning and hanging off the scaffold to grid, sketch, and paint the design. Lindsey Zuskin is a textile artist who specializes in weaving, dyeing, and treasure hunting for new materials. Her work is based in environmental consciousness, and she pulls from traditional woven structures and techniques without a limited color palette. Besides her consuming love of yarn, Lindsey calls herself a devout cat lady, an amateur bread baker, a clumsy dancer, and a lover of unexplained mysteries. Welcome to 21st Century Radio, Lindsey Zuskin. Dun-dun-dun.
Hi. Hi, Dr. Bob. Thanks for having me.
Well, our time is limited tonight, but I would like to start with a little more about your background and training. You were a student at both the Maryland Institute College of Art as well as Rhode Island School of Design. Same thing almost that my daughter did. Two very prestigious art schools. Did you always know you wanted to be an artist?
I think I did from the time I was around 14, and I guess I had parents that really pushed me to go for it. So I think I knew from a young age this is where I'd end up.
Well, what did you study at each of these institutions?
At MICA, I did a pre-college course in graphic design, and then at RISD, I studied textiles.
Well, your list of skills in fabric arts is just truly amazing. I don't know what even half these words in your bio mean. Tell us more about some of these things, such as I'll ask you to just pick one out of this group.
Okay.
A floor loom, 24 harness AVL, CompuDobby, a jacquard, hand knitting and crochet, machine knitting, single and double bed, stole, spinning, drop, spindle and wheel, hand and machine sewing, fabric silkscreen, dyes, pigments, flocking and foiling, basic traditional and modern upholstery, synthetic dyes for cellulosic, protein and filament fibers, extensive trial and error with natural dyes and strains. Whoa! Now, would you put which of those things, just one of them, that's what we're going to have time for,
right,
that would you talk to us about?
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about jacquard weaving, because that, I think, was the coolest thing that I learned at school. It's essentially like a room-size loom that was invented in France a very long time ago by a man named Jacquard, and it works through binary, so it's essentially the first computer ever made, and they're still working today.
Oh. Well, listeners, you want to visit www.lindseyzuskin, ZUSKIN.com, lindseyzuskin.com, to see samples of her beautiful work. Now, we are turning to the light bus, Lindsey. What did you think when you first saw our Help Wanted ad? Why did you want to join the team?
Well, when I first saw the ad, it was almost too good to be true, like painting with a bunch of other artists, something that's like historical almost that, I don't know, when I first saw the ad, I think it was more of a curiosity. And it was really when I got the first homework before we even had our interview that I kind of like grasped what I was getting into when I saw the articles and the videos and all the stuff about the light bus and about you and your work.
Well, when did the first interviews to select the team we carefully that we carefully explained there would be homework involved? We were not just hiring talented artists, folks, to reproduce a design. We needed inquiring minds interested in learning the meaning of the symbols they were painting. Did that part of the job appeal to you, or was it daunting?
I think at first it felt a little daunting, but then when I found out the homework was fun and I got to learn new things and have conversations about it after, it just seemed like one small part of this like much larger, more important thing. So I guess after the first week, I was all gung-ho on homework.
Well, training our team of artists is the deeper meanings of the symbols on the light bus was the most important aspect of the job to me. It's why we could not have recreated this bus with just an average artist. We needed to make a magic bus with intention behind the brushstrokes. Lindsey, I would like you to tell us which parts of the bus you feel the most connected to now, and what are the areas you learned the most about?
I think just because it was the first part I painted, I think the roof of the bus and the symbolism of Aquarius and of all the stars and the moon and the word pray, I think that's the first thing that I really thought about. But I guess later on when we were painting other parts of the bus, I had a big part in painting a lot of the lettering and the text. So I think a part that really has stuck with me till this day is the passenger side doors, because the Hebrew that's on the door, it reads Ein Sof Or, limitless light, and I think that like connecting to everything there, like there's the serpent which represents wisdom, and Isis right underneath it, which is the projector, and then there's just an entire panel of 6-pointed stars, which are, the two triangles. They represent the fire and the water, the masculine and the feminine. And I guess researching, like, the serpent is the wisdom and Isis is the protector. So that's almost the logical and the physical side. So everything on the bus kind of has its balanced friend that keeps it in check, which is something, yeah, I definitely still think about.
Well, thank you. I think it's very impressive what you did. Now, we set up a reference library in the barn studio where we did the painting, and this library had over 150 volumes of symbolism and esoteric history in it. Which of the books from the library do you most remember reading and finding some answers in?
Yeah, so when I was looking through my sketchbook to see, like, all my old notes from almost a year ago at this point, there's this one page that sticks out that has a bunch of little doodles that I must have copied, but it's from one of your books that's the Founding Fathers Secret Society, and I remember being really into it because I generally prefer, like, history to other forms of older books, and in this page, it's all different versions of, like, the seal for the United States, and I think there's just funny little notes that I'd written around it that, I mean, at this point, don't really have a reference to what I drew, but I thought they were funny, so I'll share them with you. So one thing I wrote was, only essential and permanent, how a sentence can be understood by one symbol, and abbreviations of symbols are like a dialect or a slang. If you know, you know. So I think it is interesting to see, like, the things that I really took from the books were historically how symbolism has been, I guess, morphed into something super complicated, into something that's very just simple and everyone knows what it means.
Well, you are a really great student. You're one of the best I've ever worked with. As a matter of fact, the team that I worked with was the best I've ever worked with. That's saying a lot because I've worked with a lot of great teams redoing the apocalypse and that kind of thing. I want to thank you for sharing a few pages of your notes with me, and it helps me prove to others how much intellectual work you and the other artists had to do, as well as being good at painting. I also remember your notes on the differences between 5 and 6-pointed stars, and you already gave your an interpretation of that, the male female aspect of it, of the upright and the inverted triangle, and how that's related to the cross, and how it's related to also the crescent and the star, because they're all telling the same symbolic story. Now, we had a rather diverse team of artists on the Light Brigade. What did you learn from the other team members, and how to approach a collaborative project?
Yeah, I think it's pretty important that each of us came from a really different background for a project like this. I was thinking earlier, the scaffolding Roger and I built together, so that it took an illustrator and a weaver to build something. And, when we were doing the gridding of the bus, it took an engineer and a set designer to, merge their minds together to figure out how to do that perfectly. Yeah. And, painting the whole bus, sometimes you need to have one or two other pairs of eyes kind of look at what you're looking at and tell you what's missing or what's off, or, I think it's all about that we all came from a different